You know, when we think about the first five books of the Bible, it's easy to see them as just a collection of stories and laws. But what if they're actually one single epic story? That's what we're going to explore today. This idea that the Torah is a unified narrative that was deliberately left unfinished. So, this isn't about some dry, ancient rule book. The idea here is to see the Torah as a window into what you might call a God-filled reality. A world where God is actively, patiently working his purposes out right in the middle of all the human chaos. So, here's the big question we're tackling. What if Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy are meant to be read as 5 acts in one single drama? A drama that, as we're about to see, ends on a total cliffhanger. Okay, let's dive into part 1. Our story kicks off, of course, in the book of Genesis. It starts with this beautiful picture of a perfect world, a world that gets broken and fast. So in the beginning, everything is perfect, right? God creates this amazing, flourishing world and puts humans right at the center. And he gives them this incredible job to be his partners, to reflect his own good character, and help him rule. It's a perfect partnership. And then it all falls apart. Humanity gets a choice. Are you going to trust God's definition of good and evil, or are you going to seize that power for yourself? Well, they choose rebellion. And the fallout? It's immediate and it's devastating. The world just spirals into violence and corruption. And the root of this whole problem, what the Bible calls sin, it's not just about breaking some rules on a list. It's way deeper. It's this fundamental selfishness, this willingness to hurt other people to get what you want. That's the engine driving this whole human tragedy. But get this, even in the middle of this complete disaster, God doesn't just scrap the whole project. Instead, he makes this really cryptic, mysterious promise. He says that one day a wounded victor will come, someone who will finally crush evil at its source. And just like that, we get our first little thread of hope. So that promise just kind of hangs in the air for centuries. And when we pick up the story again in Exodus, things have gone from bad to worse. Abraham's descendants, the Israelites, are slaves in Egypt. Human rebellion is at its peak. But we're also about to see God's promise start to move forward in a huge way. And what's so brilliant here is that the conflict isn't just Moses versus Pharaoh. No, it's way bigger. It's like this cosmic showdown. You've got Pharaoh on one side, who is the perfect picture of human rebellion, defining good and evil for himself, enslaving people. And on the other side, you have God, who represents true authority and rescues the enslaved. And God's rescue is just spectacular. I mean, through the plagues and the Passover, he completely dismantles Egypt's power. And in doing so, he defines salvation for the rest of the Bible. Salvation is God doing for us what we could never, ever do for ourselves. So once they're free, they get to Mount Sinai, and God makes them this absolutely mind-blowing offer. He gives them a whole set of laws and says, look, if you follow these, you'll become my representatives to the rest of the world, a kingdom of priests, showing everyone what I'm like. This is their big chance to get back to humanity's original calling. But this is where the story takes a gut-wrenching turn. I mean, literally, while Moses is up on the mountain getting this blueprint for a perfect society, what are the people doing down below? They're building a golden calf. And it forces you to ask this really uncomfortable question. What if the problem wasn't just some evil king out there? What if the real problem was in here, in their own hearts? This creates a huge problem, right? God wants to live with his people in this special tent called the tabernacle, but their corruption now makes his presence, which is pure and good, totally dangerous for them. So how in the world can a holy God live among rebellious people without destroying them? Well, the next 2 books, Leviticus and Numbers, are all about answering that question. First, you have to understand the biblical idea of holiness. And the best way to think about it is like the sun. The sun is awesome, right? It gives life, warmth, energy. But if you get too close, that same life-giving power will absolutely incinerate you. God's holiness is like that. It's this pure, powerful, good presence, but it's dangerous for corrupted things to get too close. So, to solve this son problem, God graciously provides a way for them to live together. All those laws in Leviticus that can seem so strange, they're not just random rules. They're a practical system. You have rituals and sacrifices to deal with sin. You have priests who act as mediators. And you have all these purity laws that are constant reminders that, hey, you're living in the presence of a holy God. Okay, so they have the system, right? The rituals, the priests. But it's still not enough. The Book of Numbers is just this heartbreaking record of one rebellion after another. A journey that should have taken 2 weeks turns into a 40-year death march in the desert. But the whole time, the story keeps hammering home this point. Even when they are faithless, God remains faithful. All right, so that brings us to the last book of the Torah, Deuteronomy. 40 years have passed. That whole rebellious generation is gone. And now Moses, who's at the very end of his life, gives his final words to their kids, this new generation, who are right on the edge of the promised land. And at the core of everything he says is this passionate plea. He tells them to hear, O Israel, and to love the Lord your God with all your heart. But he's not talking about a warm, fuzzy feeling. In the Bible, to hear means to obey. And to love means to be completely loyal in everything you do. It's about action. He lays out the choice for them in the starkest possible terms. It's basically a replay of the choice in the Garden of Eden. Obey and love God, and you'll have life and blessing. Disobey, and it will lead to death, curse, and getting kicked out of the land. But then Moses drops this absolute bombshell. He looks at this brand new generation full of promise and says, I know you're going to fail. He predicts their future rebellion, their future exile. Why? Because the problem isn't the laws. The problem is their hearts. And then he gives this little glimmer of future hope, that one day God himself will have to perform some kind of radical heart surgery on them so that they can finally truly love him. So you get through 5 massive books. You're expecting this epic finale, right? A big victory. But that is not what happens. The Torah ends on a massive cliffhanger. I mean, just think about all the loose ends. Moses is dead. The people are about to go into the land, but we've just been told they're doomed to fail. And all those big questions from the beginning. What about that wounded victor? How is God going to bless the entire world through this family that keeps messing up? They're all just left hanging. And that's the whole point. That's where the Torah leaves us. It's been all this time perfectly diagnosing the problem. Humanity fails over and over again because the real obstacle isn't a pharaoh or a desert, it's the human heart itself. And it stops, leaving us with this massive question. If we're the problem, how can God's promise to rescue and bless the world ever come true? To find that out, well, you just have to keep reading.